Buenos dias, damas y caballeros. This is Brandon, and today we're going to be talking about fear. So, fear. Obviously, lots of us have to deal with fear. It's a big barrier in life. It's a big barrier in making art and making the art that you want to make. It's really trite, but this old quote from FDR still holds true that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. And I know I've touched a bit on this in past videos, particularly on my video on the emotional battle of art and on procrastination. But it's a big enough of an issue that it deserves its own discussion. I'll probably do another video just on depression because I think that one is pretty important too and deserves its own discussion. And they kind of go hand in hand as well. But I want to talk about the ways that fear has been a barrier to me in life, but also ways that I've learned to face my fears and even to use my fears as an asset. Um, Fear happens to be one of my fundamental personality traits. The greatest ammunition those that know me best have against me is probably all of the ridiculous things I've been scared of or spooked by at one time or the other. I mean, all types of insects. I mean, grasshoppers, earwigs, wasps, bees, moths, cockroaches, strange dogs, wild animals. I mean, there's been pictures in children's books or in National Geographic that have just completely petrified me. I can't stand horror films. I just do not do horror films. I have to hear like really, really good reviews before I even like give it a chance, and sometimes even then, it's like I'm not going to do it. But as an adult grown male, I have been up at night, like all night, with my sheets clutched around my nose because of a horror film I've seen. So I hate doing any activity that involves fast speeds and a chance of losing control, or being at high altitudes and a chance of tumbling to my death. And geez, talk about my youth and talking to girls. Junior high for me was just basically defined by this constant paralysis of like trying to interact with girls. And just to give you a sense of how like exquisitely I feel fear, for me it feels literally like I am being electrocuted. And I don't know if any of you have ever like touched bare wires or if you've played. There's actually like these arcade games you can play where you hold on to electrodes and it gives you like successively larger shocks. I mean, that's literally kind of what it feels to me. It's a very, very similar feeling to like having electric shock. I mean, the other thing that I kind of relate it to, or way I describe it, is it just feels like having like a cheese grater scraped over your soul. Just a very unpleasant feeling. I've done so many absurd things to try to just avoid fear in my life. This is how much I just completely dislike it and want to avoid it. And it's led to me making some big mistakes in my life. I mean, particularly when you combine my ego with my fear, it's just led to me making absolutely catastrophic mistakes. And I mean, that's an issue for another day, but yeah, I understand fear very intimately. And it's still something I struggle with. I still, it's intensely difficult for me to function if I am at a place where I am feeling a high level of fear. It's one of the most difficult things for me to try to work through. I mean, if you put me up on the side of a cliff, like hanging on by my fingernails, I guarantee you I will just like freeze up to the point of complete uselessness. So, despite all of this, I have managed to kind of work my way through fear and still to make lots of art that I've been proud of, and I've done lots of other things that I've been proud of. So I kind of want to share some of the things that I've learned just about coping with fear, but also there are ways to kind of master fear, to use fear to your benefit. Um, One of the first things you have to do when coping with fear is to acknowledge that there is a correlation between intelligence, imagination, and fear. And science bears this out. There's absolutely a correlation between neuroticism and intelligence. And just think about it this way. Stupid people don't get scared as much because they just aren't smart enough or imaginative enough to understand all the cruel and horrible ways that you could suffer and die. So, kind of one of the things that I do, one of the first things I do when I notice myself having any intense phobia or fear is to acknowledge the fear as being indicative of my own intelligence and imagination. And this does kind of really two magical things for me. One, it allows me to reframe my self perception. So I go from feeling very vulnerable and ashamed of kind of my powerlessness to admiring the depth of my own creativity. You know, when I wake up in the middle of night and I imagine horrifying creatures peeking their faces around the corner, I can stop and say, like, wow, that's a really cool image, and even like try to bank it and be like, I need to like remember this for later. Um, and the kind of second thing it helps me do is it just helps me to like parse reality from imagination. You know, once I can see my own mind is coloring the situation, I can start to question and kind of challenge my instincts, and it kind of brings me down again. And, I mean, sometimes it can be that can be a little bit of a hard process, even when I know something is totally irrational and silly. Man, I'll still be pretty hyped up from the fear of something for a while until I can like calm myself down. Um, so, by the way, if you've gotten this far, please take a moment to subscribe to my channel. There's a little whistling cloud on the bottom right hand side of the screen. You can just click there and subscribe through there. I'd appreciate it, and it'll allow you to see more of this content that I'm making for you. Um, so far, I've been talking about responding to fear and responding to fear in a very general way. I want to start talking a little bit more specifically about art and thinking about fear as it relates to art and how it can kind of hold us back. Um, and some ways we can use fear as well. The two biggest fears I see that hold back artists are fear of rejection and fear of failure. Um, and part of this is because art makes you vulnerable. Everyone, no matter who you are, where you are, is part of a community. And part of being healthy and happy is having a meaningful role within that community where you feel like you're contributing and you have the respect of your peers. And the profession of making art, by its definition, makes that hard. You know, even the most highly crafted art still has an uphill battle to prove its worth. And that's just because art is about abstract ideas. It isn't about, providing people food, water, and shelter. And of course, I am a firm believer that art is incredibly important and vital, but it's not important and vital in an obvious way. I mean, you have to work harder as an artist to justify it and to make it clear to other people why what you do is important. So you compound that then by the fact that you may be new to art, your art's not going to be very good, and if your art's not very good, you're not going to be making money with it. And suddenly you open yourself up to all sorts of ridicule. And so it's understandable that people are very apprehensive about committing too much to art. Uh, and one of the experiences that I think back on that really transformed how I dealt with that problem was kind of one of my first figure drawing classes in college. I think it must have been my very first figure drawing class. You know, here I am coming out of high school, suddenly in the college realm, and if when at that age when you're coming into college, it's so intimidating. It was very intimidating for me, and I just assumed everyone else in the class probably went to art school before me. Everyone was seasoned. They'd probably already done a lot of figure drawing before. I didn't want to look bad. I didn't want to make a fool of myself compared to everyone else. A lot of that apprehension went away the more time I spent in the class and the more I kind of gained confidence in my own abilities. But I remember in one of my classes there was one student, and I don't even remember his name, but over the course of the semester, I came to admire him. And when I think back about what I admired, it wasn't really the quality of his work, it was the depth of his dedication. Every spare moment he was thinking about and focused on making art. He had a little sketchbook where he was always making notes in, and you could just tell that he was serious business. And that was the guy that I wanted to be. And I can, I look back and I can remember clearly that I wasn't even that crazy about his work, but his attitude was really, really enviable. And the lesson that I learned from that is that you don't necessarily need to be super great at what you do to gain the respect of your peers. You can really gain that respect through your attitude. So I kind of take that with me now. Any situation I'm in where I'm the newbie, where I'm outclassed, and I'm just self-conscious about what I'm creating or what I'm doing, try to bring that mindset into me. I mean, for example, when I go to the gym, it's guaranteed that I'm going to be the wimpiest guy there, skinniest guy there, lifting the lightest weights. But I still go to the gym, and I go to this gym regularly. And the mindset that I go into those situations with is that of I may not impress them with my skills, but I will impress them with my dedication. It worked for that guy, and it's worked for me as this kind of trick just to run headlong into new and scary situations. And there's just something about the gravity and soberness with which you approach your work that will help you to demonstrate your worth and your value to your peers. So, don't apologize for it and don't shortchange your own development. And having this mindset of dedication is important because it can transform how you think about rejection. Rejection stops being evidence of your own deficiency and turns into opportunities to learn and grow. And this is also why I recommend any artist at any phase of their growth put their work out in public as soon as possible and just solicit for as much feedback as you can. Obviously, you should put it online. There's lots of places where you can put it online and get feedback. But you should also table at conventions and apply for ambitious art jobs. And if you do this, you're going to absolutely experience rejection. Some of it will be direct rejection in the sense of just like stupid comments. Some of it will be good feedback, like very nice friendly feedback, but probably most of the rejection you're going to receive isn't going to be intentionally negative or insulting. It's more likely just to come in the form of people ignoring you. You're just not going to get much of a response. But it's crazy how much going through that experience, especially in a convention, like you go to a convention and bring all your stuff and you get ignored, that like teaches you something deep about your work that you're not going to get any other way. And if you can pay attention to that experience and you can have the mindset of earning respect through dedication, those rejections turn into really valuable lessons. Particularly once you start kind of incorporating the things you learn and start watching yourself grow. I mean, I've been going to conventions for years, and kind of the process that I went through in conventions was, the first time I went with a sketchbook and didn't get a ton of response, and then I had a bunch of prints of certain things and didn't get a lot of response for those, and then I finally came to a point where I said, I'm going to make work that I want to make, that I think is cool. I put my heart into it, and I think the combination of by that time my skills had improved enough, and I was doing something that was unique and novel coming from the heart, and that's when stuff like kind of broke out, and that's when people started responding to my art and the stuff they had at conventions. So like that rejection, that failure, it informs you. It helps you to take the next step, and it helps you to kind of take the right steps in your artistic growth. So the other big fear I think people have is the fear of failure, which I definitely went into some detail on in my procrastination video. So I'd recommend you go check that out. And it's a different kind of an approach. So, really go listen to that, and you can kind of think of these two together. In particular, I wanted to talk about how fear of failure may not totally be a bad thing. And if you do, it can be this asset. I was recently listening to a series of lectures by Jordan Peterson. He's kind of known for this like gender pronoun controversy. But he also has these great lectures just on story and meaning. He's kind of an existentialist. He has this great one called Maps and Meaning, where he analyzes Pinocchio and uses it kind of as this metaphor for, you know, taking responsibility for your life and becoming like a real person. I thought it was fantastic. Some really cool insights. One of the insights within his discussion is he just talks about like the importance of visualizing failure. And the argument he makes is that you want to put fear in such a face, you want to put fear in such a place that it pushes you forward, not holds you back. And he uses these examples of experiments done with rats where they try and motivate them through a maze with food, but they find like when they add the scent of a cat behind the rats, their motivation just becomes incredibly more intense. So there's so many things that scare us that can kind of get in the way of us doing what we want to do. And usually that's because we are imagining the consequences of trying. We're imagining like, oh, if I try this could happen. If I could try this could happen. Rather than taking the time to visualize what would happen if we didn't even try. If we didn't get this thing that we wanted, our goal, it's better to visualize what our life would be without that thing than to visualize all the pitfalls that could happen along the way. And the one addendum I would kind of make to this strategy is that you just want to be careful that your visualization you make is very sober, realistic, and well thought out. That it's not this kind of like end of the world, emotional and dramatic visualization of failure. Because if you kind of push it too far, that can cause paralysis. And really, this is kind of why I recommend you check out the video on procrastination, because it talks about this as well. But what I found really brilliant about this approach of Jordan Peterson's is that I think in a really brilliant way, by visualizing what it would be like to fail, you're actually painting a really clear picture of why winning matters to you. And this is why I think this. So for several years now, I've done this kind of gratitude exercise. And the whole idea is, in order for you to become more grateful for the things that you have, you go through this mental exercise of imagining what your life would be like without them. And this is something I would totally recommend you do. So, sit down, think about what your life would be like without certain opportunities you have, without having the people that you love in your life, without having a home, without living where you live. I mean, you can go through the list of things that you can be grateful for. Visualize what your life would be like without those things, and it brings into really clear focus how important those things are to you. So I think Peterson's strategy works in the same way. By visualizing not having the thing you want, it really helps you crystallize how important that thing is to you in the first place. And that's probably the last thought I would leave you with, is that the best antidote to fear is meaning. You need to have something to fight for. No hero has ever traveled to the depths of a dragon's lair just to slay the dragon. The dragon is only worth slaying for the treasure that it guards. And I don't know what that treasure is going to be for you. Maybe it's to inspire others. Maybe it's to leave a legacy for your children. Maybe it's to explore the limits of your own capabilities. Maybe it's to change the world or change other people's ways of looking at the world. It can be many things, but you should find something that you are passionate about and something that drives you. Something that's noble and something that's pure and something that's worth fighting for. Chances are you may already have that thing stored somewhere in your heart, and you just need to vocalize it and crystallize your vision of it. I've just been in so many situations in life where I had no other choice, despite all my misgivings, despite my desire to totally avoid fear, where I just had to face fear head on. And I guarantee you, if you are trying to accomplish something in life that you want to accomplish, you are going to have to face fear head on at some point. And you better make damn well sure that when you get to that point, you know what matters to you in life. You better make sure you know what is right and wrong and what you want your life to mean. Otherwise, you'll have no chance against fear. Fear is part of who we are as humans. It doesn't matter how you want to see it. Either God gave it to us or we developed it through millions of years of evolution. But either way, we have fear for a reason. It plays a role. If you give it proper respect, if you treat it wisely, you can master it. And you can use it as a tool to win whatever treasures you desire. Thanks for watching. Hopefully that made fear a little less scary for you. Please leave any questions or comments below. Please like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.